And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, welcome back to... It's only Wednesday, and the leftists have gone wild. I think we're going to call the entire show Leftists Gone Wild. Loretta Lynch, the new Attorney General, taking Washington by storm by going after FIFA? What's next? The NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball? I mean, I'm sorry. I can't get excited about Deflategate. I can't get to... Most people cannot get excited about soccer to start with. Most Americans think it's a communist sport, even though our kids play it. And it has way too many subjective rules. And now we find out they're horribly corrupt. The organization, which is like almost every other global organization, horribly corrupt and bought off. Okay, why is that our problem? And what about Benghazi? She forgets Benghazi, forgets Fast and Furious, ignores the war raging in cities like Baltimore and Chicago, but somehow FIFA is the priority. You can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, Barack Obama, his edicts continue. By the way, I don't know if you heard this, but he just took over all of America's small bodies of water. So you got a pond in your backyard, government's in charge of it now. He put, by executive fiat through the EPA, he put every small body of water, every wetland under federal control. That he's declared dominion over every stream, every creek, every rill, every ditch, every brook, every rivulet, I can't even read my own writing here. Whatever that was, every creek and every wetland. The EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers have stated that they will exercise control, that these bodies of water belong to them. So God help you if you have a creek or a stream or a rivulet or a ditch or a pool or whatever. The government's coming to seize control. What are you laughing at in there? You're dying, roiling over. I don't know what's going on here in the Radio Free California Network studios in the production booth, but someone has been completely seized with humor. Are you going to share, or are you just going to keep it? No, you can't even talk.
We can't.
Okay.
We can't talk about it on the air right now.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll tell you on break.
All right. Well, I guess that we'll find out. I don't know if I'll be able to tell you. Okay. So, meanwhile, back in California. Oh, before I forget, do not touch that dial at any point today during the Tim Donnelly Show. You need to listen to the entire show if you wish to catch Michelle Malkin, who will be joining us and talking about her new book, Who Built That? And that is Michelle's clever, witty response to President Obama's 2012 insulting premise that somehow you didn't build your business, that somehow the government did. Yeah, to every small business owner out there, you do not want to miss that segment. So, meanwhile, back in California, everyone considers California to be the pro-choice state, right? I mean, am I wrong here? California pro-choice, controlled by Democrats. Democrats supposed to be pro-choice, right?
Yes.
Okay. why is it then that they're not pro-choice or pro-freedom about just about anything? They're not pro-choice when it comes to choosing what type of weapon you'd like to defend yourself with. They want to limit how many bullets you can have in your magazine. They want to limit what guns you can buy. Their goal ultimately is to eliminate all guns altogether, but they don't tell you that. So one by one, they pick off your choices. I told you about trying to buy a gun for my wife for her birthday. In the greatest state in the union, you can't buy the coolest gun that my wife wanted because they don't want to put up with California's BS. California pro-choice?
No, I think it's selectively pro-choice.
Well, I'm going to debate you on that too because I don't think they're pro-choice at all for any reason whatsoever. You can't choose paper or plastic when you go to the grocery store. You can't choose whether or not you want to vaccinate your child, even if you consider the vaccinations or some of the vaccinations to be a dangerous or to be a threat to your child's health. Okay, once again, check, no choice. California's no choice, not pro-choice. But in particular, when it comes down to abortion, I always thought they were pro-choice when it came to abortion. Right? They wanted you to be able to choose an abortion or not, right?
Generally, yes.
Yeah, you would think that's where the area of choice and freedom regarding this particular issue arises in California. But the leftist mafia in charge of California has put forth a bill called AB 775. We mentioned it briefly with my friend Brian Jones yesterday. I'm sorry, Assemblyman Brian Jones. He was my former roommate, so I guess I just call him Brian. And they call the bill the Reproductive Fact Act. Anytime you have the government telling you that they're going to give you the facts, it's time to worry. But the Reproductive Fact Act basically does this. It's very simple. It forces private pregnancy care and clinics, which are also called pregnancy alternative centers, that are completely funded by private money. It forces them to promote abortion. Now, just to give you a little history, most pregnancy alternative centers are set up by pro-life activists. They are funded by people who are ardently pro-life. And the California leftists are so offended that some people might not choose to, what's the politically correct word, to kill your baby? Terminate it, extinguish its life, I don't know, whatever. Bottom line is they might not choose to abort their baby. And that really, really, really offends these leftists. Individual named David Chu. There's another one, Speaker Tony Atkins, who is this co-sponsor of this bill, and I forget who the other leftist is. But here's the thing, and by the way, I'm not here to debate abortion with anybody. Bottom line is I'm pro-choice, everybody knows that. But the difference between me and these leftists, I'm not looking to force everyone at the point of a gun to share my beliefs. So here's where this bill is so obnoxious. It forces these clinics to notify the young women who have come there mainly for counseling. They've come there for prenatal care. They've signed an agreement that they will look at a sonogram. The whole purpose of that is about 85% of young women who look at a sonogram decide not to abort their baby. They decide to have the baby, and whether they raise it themselves or whether they adopt it, it fulfills the mission of this private entity who has raised private money with the express goal of saving the lives of babies that might otherwise be aborted. That is the purpose of these clinics. Just like the purpose of Planned Parenthood is to promote abortion, to promote the extinction of the black race, which the founder, Margaret Sanger, said. And You'd think of all the godforsaken places on the face of the earth, a Planned Parenthood clinic, since they are funded with your tax dollars, that's where the choice ought to take place. That's where, if you're going to force anybody to do anything, since taxpayer dollars are being used, you ought to let the young women know that there is another way and there is an alternative, and that you don't have to kill your baby just for expediency, especially if you're deeply conflicted about it. You might go talk to somebody at a pregnancy alternative center where they might have some alternatives for you. But no, they're not forcing this on Planned Parenthood. They're only forcing this on the privately funded pregnancy alternative centers. And that right there is the definition of the leftist hypocrisy. 323-746-TALK. 323-746-8255. If you want to get in on this discussion, Michelle Malkin coming up in today's show. Stay tuned.
The record machine. I knew he must have been about 17.
So don't look now, but the 2016 GOP field just got a lot more crowded. It's going to be really fascinating to watch because you have so many long shots that are in the race. And look, as a former long shot who got elected, I'm not going to discourage anybody from getting in the race. I'm not one of these who believes in all that strategery when it comes to elections. I think you ought to support whoever you believe in, and you ought to back them 100%. And you know what? If you win, you win. If you lose, you still backed somebody you believed in. And who cares if you could have backed somebody who was only going to give you 10% of what you believed in, as opposed to somebody else on the other side of the aisle who might only give you 5%. To me, that's not a choice. And it's certainly not, it's nothing to get excited about. But we now have Rick Santorum, who is in the race. And by the way, Rick Santorum was, just like Mike Huckabee, was completely underestimated and won the Iowa caucuses and finished second overall to the eventual Republican nominee, Mitt Romney. So he is going to be, or has announced from Pittsburgh that he is running. He is in the race. New York Governor George Pataki, yeah, if you've never heard of him, well, you probably won't hear much about him because I just think there's too many in the race now to pay too much attention to more than a handful, but he's throwing his hat in the ring. You've got Senator Lindsey Grahamnesty, who couldn't, there is no amnesty he will not support. And he's just a homegrown moron. I don't know how else to say it. He's going to give the other idiot from Florida a run for his money for the establishment ticket. So you're going to have Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham fighting for the establishment title because they're willing to sell their souls. They're willing to sell you out. And those are the only two that you'll probably ever hear me be too dismissive and derisive of, but they're not even recognizable as Republicans or conservatives. And I've stated long ago that I believe that Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush ought to form the establishment party where they just take money from the one percenters to save you to save the middle class from the 1%. Funded and owned by the 1%. But yeah, it does. Do we have that clip from Carly? Is that ready to go? Okay, we're still downloading it. Hey, Carly just threw down on Hillary Clinton today. And as I said, there's going to be people who stand out in the 2016 race, and you're going to have to stand out. And Carly Fiorina is certainly climbing to the top of that list in terms of, A, getting herself attention that's positive, of B, really focusing on Hillary rather than trashing her opponents. Because what you're going to see from the Jeb Bushes, if Jeb Bush's experience in coming to California and supporting a Democrat for the Republican nominee for governor is any indication, is you're going to see brutal, white-knuckle, ugly politics where they just do scorched earth. They go after the most conservative individuals, those who they think pose the greatest threat, and they annihilate them with just avalanches of cash. Now, what is interesting is you have left stream media publishing articles saying that the Democrats are more afraid of Jeb Bush than they are of Ted Cruz. Now think about that for a minute. Why would the left stream media communicate anything that's factual or true in terms of strategy? Every single time an election comes along, every single time this happens, you will have the media telling the Republicans who their candidate should be. And they always pick the one that'll be the easiest to beat. In California, they put up Neel Kashkari. They just mowed over him. He actually spent more than Jerry Brown, and got fewer votes than the complete nobodies who were on the ticket, who nobody really knew, but every one of them did better because they actually had articulated some beliefs. If you look at our guest last Friday, Cynthia Kendall, she said something very interesting that rang true. Now, she happened to be talking about the issue of illegal immigration, but I think given that Oregon has a similar makeup to California, and you have the same people who advise at the level of senatorial and gubernatorial races, giving advice to the presidential tickets. She said those who sidestepped the issue of illegal immigration vis-a-vis the driver's card, those who said, well, I'm going to talk about the economy and jobs and education and blah, 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 but I'm also a Republican. She said every one of them lost. The ones who embraced and fought for the people, who talked about the issue square on, they won. And I don't think it's any different at a presidential level. I think if you have a true conservative, if you have a hardcore conservative, if you have somebody who can articulate particular issues that really get under people's skin, illegal immigration is one of them that is exploding. By the way, the President Barack Obama just got slapped by the court, who told him that he cannot break the law and give 4 million people who are in the country illegally a pass and completely undermine all enforcement of the law. So that, of course, is going to go to another panel of federal judges and eventually to the Supreme Court, where many predict that Obama will lose and his entire legacy is at risk. But that's a good thing, because we don't want his legacy to cost millions of Americans their jobs, their opportunities in college, their lives in some cases, when you have some of these people who've come into the country illegally who, by the way, are criminals and nobody knew. Oh, surprise, surprise, you didn't do a background check because you're overwhelmed and you've got way too many people because you're doing a mass amnesty. Okay, you got to stop. You're getting me way too wound up in here. It is going to be one of those days. But you do not want to miss Michelle Malkin coming up. We've got a great show. We're also going to talk about that secret trade deal and what it could mean to you and your job. 323-746-TALK. Tim Donnelly Show continues.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
So continuing with the theme of leftists gone wild, I came across an article in the LA Times. It was written by Pat Morrison, who used to be with NPR and some, I think, PBS, the government-sponsored leftist stations. Why is it that the right, conservatives, can actually draw an audience and create a business and survive, or not all of them, but some of them, and then on the left, it never works out, so they just go to the government, use the government, they steal your money to fight against everything you believe in, and they call it art. I don't know, but this is what she said, and if any of you are concerned about Jade Helm, the title of the article is Operation Jade Helm, Crank Up the Conspiracies. And they have a picture of a guy, Bob Welch, who this is the caption: Texas resident Bob Welch invokes the Bible to protest the military training exercise set for July. Military leaders met with locals in Bastrop, Texas, to try to allay their concerns. Operation Jade Helm isn't the covert operation. It's a cover for the covert operation. The conspiracy-minded think this is really about a military takeover of the American Southwest. Jade Helm, as sinister as the interstate highway system and fluoridation over the U.S. and fluoridation. Okay, sorry. Some of the good folks in the 9 southern states have their camo knickers in a twist over the U.S. military's Operation Jade Helm. It's a special operations training exercise in new warfare tactics. But the conspiracy-minded, from Chuck Norris to the governor of Texas, have their doubts. So that's you, by the way. You're the conspiracy-minded if you're concerned about this. If you have any passing flicker of doubt after you've watched the political leadership of this country shred the Constitution, as you watch Obama, like just today, hey, I just took over the water and on your property, it's not under your control anymore. I can send a federal agency on there anytime I want. And if we find any damn mosquitoes or frogs or lily-livered lizards or any other, I almost cussed. That's how livid this gets me. But it would have fit right into the alliteration. But, if we find any salmon-covered salamanders, you don't own your property anymore. These leftist bureaucracies have made it their mission now to encroach on private property, to encroach on private businesses, just like we talked about with the pregnancy alternative centers, like we've talked about with the militant gay left that I like to call the Gestapo, that is not satisfied with tolerance. They want you to promote their agenda, and if you don't, they're willing to use the government to beat you about the head and face until you comply. Well, you know what? It's not American for us to comply. We question because we're Americans. But let me continue, because obviously, just in case any of you out there think I don't get it, this is a satire, but it is extremely sarcastic, and it denigrates the only group left in America that you can make fun of anymore and get away with it: Southern Christians. But the conspiracy-minded, from Chuck Norris to the governor of Texas, have their doubts. Instead of war games to prepare for a new kind of war, they imagine a takeover of red states ordered by a blue state commander-in-chief. They have it all wrong, all of them. Jade Helm is not a smokescreen for martial law, military takeover. Oh, no. It is a smokescreen for altering the American way of life. Here's the real covert agenda: Operation Fierce Glowworm. Objective: promoting national energy savings by replacing energy-wasting foreign-made incandescent bulbs with American-made compact fluorescent bulbs. That's her. Somebody at the LA Times actually gave her space in a newspaper that businesses pay to advertise in to write that crap. I mean, I like my incandescent light bulbs. I don't like the freaking government telling me I have to put these poisonous bulbs in my house that are so bad and so full of mercury you can't even dispose of them without getting a hazardous waste permit. Target area: select Texas panhandle towns. Tactic: residents of towns in target counties are invited to "you must be present to win" lottery drawings in each town. Prize: a decommissioned Humvee. Refreshments will be served while the drawings are underway. United States Special Ops team trained in illumination subterfuge will enter residents' homes and businesses and replace all existing incandescent light bulbs with energy-saving CFLs. Operation Slim Jim. Objective: improve dietary habits and thus extend the lifespan of Americans via healthier eating. Additionally, saving billions in healthcare between now and... I can't even read this stuff. This is so... This is how the left views you. They think we are stupid. They think we are unsophisticated, ignorant. Well, you know what? If you believe in global warming and you believe in giving the government control over virtually the entire economy, certainly the energy producing sector of the economy, all because of a theory concocted by a bunch of so-called scientists, the same who concocted the theory of the global ice age back when I was in 8th grade, who then changed it to global warming, who've now changed it to climate change, because then if it heats, then they say it's global warming, but it's still climate change, right? And if it cools, they call it global freezing, and it's still climate change, right? Everything that happens, every bit of weather that happens in the United States or in the world is blamed on global climate change now, which is ludicrous. So if you believe in that, you're the idiot. If you believe in that, then you are the religious zealot, because that's your religion, is government control, is literally... And if you're willing to hand over all of your freedom to a centralized government that knows best, then I wonder if you're even an American. Because Americans, we always question. And yeah, there was someone on, a friend of mine on Facebook, at least, a Facebook friend, let me say that, who said, if you're one of the tin pot idiots who thinks that Jade Helm is a conspiracy, then please unfriend me. And I was looking for an excuse to add more friends who are activists who actually want to fight for things that matter. So I immediately unfriended him. Now, I'm not a tin pot conspiracy theorist. Neither is the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Neither is Congressman Louis Gohmert. Neither are a whole host of Americans who are rational and sound. The only rational view in a country where the government grows at such a rate that it has become the greatest threat to your freedom and your economic future is to be skeptical, is to be questioning, is to challenge authority. Isn't that what they... Well, you wouldn't remember. We weren't around in the 60s. I'm not even going to ask what year you were born, but it was some time way after that. But look, that's what the hippies were all saying. That's what the whole peace, love, and freedom movement was. Woodstock and everything. It was challenge the authority. If you don't trust anyone over the age of 30. Did you read about any of that in your history books? No, people can't see you when you're waving you're nodding your head. Shaking my head, SMH, that doesn't work on radio.
Tim, we need to turn this into a TV show. No, we didn't learn about any of that in at least my high school history class.
But the left that was all about challenging the man has become the man. Barack Obama has no regard for the Constitution. That's what's at risk. The risk is the form of government that protected the citizens from an overzealous government. And so what we are zealous about here on the Tim Donnelly Show is not about the individual issue. When I was talking earlier about abortion, I was talking about freedom. I was talking about the freedom to choose. Yeah, if you want to have an abortion, you can do that. It's legal in this country. But I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to be forced by the government to pay for it because it violates my beliefs. And I have a right as an American to believe as I see fit and not have the government interfere with that. And when the government comes in and says, you must buy this kind of health care, you must have this kind of coverage as a business owner, if you do not serve someone and cater a wedding that offends your religious beliefs, then we will shut you down, we will fine you out of existence. That is the intolerance of the left who are bent on depriving you of your freedom, and they have really declared war on Christianity in this country. And because the only group that you can draw cartoons about, that you can demonize, that you can attack, that you can criticize, that you can vilify with impunity are Christians. And in particular, white Southern Christians. That's the one group that nobody will ever defend. And you can have a field day with them. 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255, defending freedom across the globe, the Tim Donnelly Show.
I'm Barack Obama, and I don't always listen to talk radio. But when I do, it's the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, you have reached the Radio Free California Network, and I am Tim Donnelly, your host. And we have been talking about, well, we've been questioning it. We question everything. That's just the way we do it here. And It's funny. I found an article. I'm not, Bethany, you know where this one was printed from? Military drills increase globally. But it was fascinating because it mentioned Jade Helm. Then it mentioned in Canada they've got Maple Resolve, including NATO military personnel. 10 other NATO countries are involved in Lightning Strike in Norway, Dynamic Goose in Russia and China, and Joint Warrior exercise in Scotland. There's more stuff going on in Russia and in the Nordic and Baltic regions. Everywhere you look, you've got these major military exercises going on in civilian areas. I think it's only rational to question, and we've got a caller here, Lloyd from West Covina, who wants to get in on it. Welcome to the show, Lloyd.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I want to say one thing here. There's too many of us veterans that are not taking this seriously.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you. But they think we're playing, but we're not playing, Tim. If they come onto our property, we're trained and we know how they think, and we're going to take action.
Well, you know what, Lloyd, I'm not surprised. I mean, one thing I've done in my few years in government is spend a lot of time with veterans. There's a lot of very serious Americans out there who serve this country, who have skills, who have arms, and they know how to use them, and they're not going to take it lying down. I mean, there's a reason that Japan did not invade America, and I'm sure you know it.
That's right. I understand, and several of my brothers fought out in the jungle, and let me tell you something, this is not going to go down well.
Well, you heard it from Lloyd in West Covina. Thank you for calling in, Lloyd.
Thank you, Tim.
And I thought he was going to tell me why the Japanese did not, I kind of left it out there, but why they didn't invade. Tojo, the emperor, he's no dummy. You know what he said?
What did he say?
Behind every blade of grass, there's a rifle. And that was an astute observation, because if he had, instead of lobbing a few torpedoes, from off of Santa Barbara, if he had actually tried to invade California, he would have run into a whole lot of Americans. And even though most military age personnel were overseas, there's still plenty of guns here and plenty of people that know how to use them. It's just ingrained in our nature. That's just the way it is. But I wanted to switch gears a little bit, because we're going to have Michelle Malkin coming up after the break, and I actually caught a tweet that she sent out today from the LA Times. I hadn't even seen the story until I saw it on her Twitter. It's a story out of Bloomberg. The great minimum wage debate explained. For the can't make this up if we tried file, the $15 an hour minimum wage mandate that was just passed by the Los Angeles City Council has a new opponent that has decided it's time to draft the specifics of the law. That's labor unions. Those same labor unions, of course, who pushed for the law in the first place, are actually demanding exemptions. Labor leaders who were among the strongest supporters of the citywide minimum wage increase approved last week by the Los Angeles City Council are advocating last-minute changes to the law that would create an exemption for companies with unionized workforces. The push to include an exception to the mandated wage increase for companies that let their employees collectively bargain was the latest undetected detail. Now get this. The very unions, the very people who pushed for it, who are willing to say that it is the greatest thing in the world for small businesses like Pat Orr's Pizza Shop, or some friends of mine that opened up a couple of Farmer Boys restaurants in the Los Angeles area. It's okay for them to pay $15 an hour and be forced to pay for the government to set the wages for their employees. But unions, powerful unions who have tremendous pools of money and tremendous political clout, just like with Obamacare, they want to be exempted. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now you understand why McDonald's is moving to robots and why others in the quick serve food industry are moving toward automation. That's the bottom line. Hey, we will have someone who is not a robot, someone who is an articulate, brilliant, clever commentator. She's written a great book called Who Built That? And you know who built it. You did. Michelle Malkin, coming up right after the break. Stay tuned to the Tim Donnelly Show. We promised you a special guest, and she is on the line. Firebrand conservative columnist, commentator, internet entrepreneur, and #1 New York Times best-selling author Michelle Malkin joins us here to talk about her amazing book called Who Built That? Michelle Malkin, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me.
It is a great pleasure and an honor. I'm a big fan of yours, and I love this is sort of a slap in the face, a nice slap in the face to President Obama, who in 2012 said, you didn't build that, to business owners across the United States. And your book is so positive, though, because you expose what you call the tinkerpreneurs, or I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah, I know, it's a tough one. Tinkerpreneurs,
who are people who make this country work, who invented things, who came up with things that have redefined how we live.
Yeah, that's right. I guess you could say this is a happy slap in Obama's face. And it certainly didn't start out that way, I have to be honest. I was seething mad when he made those comments in 2012, and of course he was merely echoing Elizabeth Warren, who's the true dyed-in-the-wool collectivist socialist who first popularized this phrase.
Right.
And,
is that the same Elizabeth Warren who today was exposed as being a millionaire, even though she's bagging on Wall Street and she's got all kinds of money in Wall Street?
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, with these liberal hypocrites in the echelons of power, it's always wealth for them, but not for the rest of us. And when you're a redistributor of wealth, you don't mind a little bit of crony socialism coming your way. You know, that's how they define success in the marketplace. There always has to be government rigging the game and rigging the rules. And what I highlighted was this proud history of largely self-taught and all self-made tinkerpreneurs, many of them, of course, who started their businesses in the proverbial and often literal garage. And they're different than the famous great inventors that they used to teach about in the public schools with Common Core. Of course, they don't teach any of that anymore.
Right, exactly.
Right, but I really wanted to pay tribute to many of the long-forgotten proud tinkerpreneurs who really made our lives so much better, but never get any credit for it because we take for granted so many of the very simple and mundane products they brought to market. Things like the bottle cap and glass bottles and the Gillette razor. And I brought it all the way up into the present day. And my favorite, of course, was Chapter 1, where I talked about a Southern Californian entrepreneur, Anthony Maglica, who made one of the most famous and well-beloved products out there that many law enforcement and first responders use, on the front lines, the mag light flashlight.
And I have one of those right here on my desk in my hand.
Yes. It is such a sleek, aesthetically pleasing, amazing piece of engineering. I was so thrilled to be able to meet Tony in his headquarters in Ontario, California. He employs 800 proud American workers, refuses to outsource, refuses to use cheap Chinese parts. When he refused to use one of these cheap Chinese parts, he decided that he was just going to make it himself, and not only make the part, but make the machines in-house to do the job. And that's the kind of American businessman and job creator and wealth creator that really should be a rock star in modern America.
Yeah, and he came to this country with nothing, right? I mean, you talk about it in your book that he slept on his workbench. He left Denver, the Denver area, or Colorado, somewhere in Colorado, because he was working too hard, and the union shop foreman was offended by his work ethic and wanted him to slow down because he was working through breaks and producing faster than everybody else and making the other guys look bad.
Yeah, and he looked me in the eye. This man is 84 years old, goes to work at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning every day still, hasn't had a vacation in 10 years, and is not going to stop until, somebody above decides that it's time for him to stop. This insatiable hunger to keep improving upon his products, and that work ethic and drive used to define, the American dream. And it was incredible. He looked me in the eye and he said he could not understand for the life of him. He just couldn't fathom this idea of these union bosses telling him not to work too much.
Yeah.
So he drove his family in his broken down Studebaker, which he had to push sometimes up through the Rocky Mountains to get to California, and he's never given up. And I get so much inspiration from that, Tim. A lot of times doing the things that we do in this business on the daily political battlefield, you think, forget it. It's time to give up. It's over. And when I know that there are so many, many, many millions of men and women like this in this country, how can you give up? We can't stop.
Absolutely. I had the privilege of making his factory one of my stops when I was running for governor out here in California. And, of course, I spent 20 years in the manufacturing industry. And what I loved about it was guys like Tony, who knew how to make things. They would create things of value out of nothing. And then when you do that, when you take raw materials and turn them into something of value, you create an entire economy. It's the building block of the economy. And we've watched it, due to government policies here in California, be outsourced. And it broke my heart for this man to not even be able to say that his product is made in America because there's one tiny little part that might be, made somewhere else, but 99.9999% of it is made in America, but with American labor. We need to get the government out of his way.
Yes, absolutely. And that regulation that you have there in California is absolutely absurd. And he did what he could. He doesn't consider himself a political animal. He's too busy making things. But he did try to fight that battle in the Capitol. And he's committed to his American workers, as every American business woman and businessman should be. And he's fought at the federal level as well. He showed me this experimental lab that he had, where he was innovating in incandescent light. And of course, because of the stupid federal Al-Gore light bulb regulations and light bulb ban, he had to cease that work. It cost several hundreds of jobs, and who knows what other kind of innovations might have sprung from that. And exactly what you're saying, Tim, is exactly where we need to be headed, which is getting government out of the way and freeing up people to pursue their self-interest in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness the best way that they know how to, and the way that they want to decide how to do it. And so many of these self-appointed government deciders of wants and needs is what I call them, especially in the wake of these Bernie Sanders comments.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard. You know, the idea that there's too many choices on the shelves and this is the scourge, this is the real crisis in America. What is wrong with these people?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Michelle Malkin. Her book is Who Built That? It is a must read, and we have a link to it up at timdonnellyshow.com. You make a great point. I would love to maybe ask you a few questions about that and Barack Obama's comments about winners of life lottery right after we get back from this break. Can I hold you over for a break?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Hey, stay tuned. We're going to have more with Michelle Malkin right after this break. Tim Donnelly Show continues.
One more dreamer on a runaway drive. Now there's one less burned out star in the sky. Leaving California tonight.
I'm Barack Obama, and I'm the #1 fan of the Tim Donnelly Show.
Welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. You can also send a tweet or connect with us on Facebook by going there. But right now we are talking with Michelle Malkin, who is the author of Who Built That? And Michelle, we were starting to get into a little bit of the 2016 election. I mean, you got Bernie Sanders out there who's saying there's too many choices. You've got Barack Obama who says you didn't build that, the government did. And by the way, those who are the winners of life's lottery. I mean, how offensive to those who built this country, like the tinkerpreneur. Wait, you got to say that word again. Tinkerpreneurs in your who are described in your book, including Maglite inventor and the founder of that company, Tony Maglica, who's out here in Ontario, California. But I mean, is there hope to? I mean, do you see a pathway for Republicans to beat back some of this in the 2016 election? I mean, there's 1 million Republicans now in the race.
Yeah, it's a huge circus, actually. And for those of us who are committed constitutional conservatives, we have to cling to, whatever hope we can that we'll get as conservative a candidate as possible. And you would think that the last couple of election cycles, when the so-called moderates and the GOP Beltway establishment got its way, you would think that the results and consequences of their massive failures would redound to our benefit, the grassroots conservatives benefit. But in so many ways, we talked about rigged games, you've got these big business donors who are allied with big government progressives, masquerading as, diehard Republican free marketeers who are committed to principles of limited government. And then what happens? They get into office, and the first thing they do is throw us and the Constitution under the bus.
Yeah.
So this is the time to really test them. And so I am, and I have been, and I will continue to be as outspoken when these people fail my litmus test on a number of cherished policy issues, because I think they act as good proxies. If you are on the wrong side of amnesty, you are a danger to me. If you are on the wrong side of things like Common Core and Fed Ed, then to me it doesn't really seem much better to have a big government progressive with an R by his name than with a D.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got guys like Jeb Bush that are in favor of Common Core. They're fully in favor of amnesty. They think the Second Amendment is a disease or a social issue or something. I've said, and I know Rush has said this as well, that we ought to Hillary and Jeb Bush ought to form an establishment party and run on that ticket, but they probably can't figure out who would be on top. In order to run, as you know, a lot of the donors, amnesty's their litmus test. They won't give you money unless you're in favor of amnesty.
That's exactly right. And you've got all of these big corporations that are driven by the need for cheaper and cheaper, inferior illegal alien labor, and increasingly a lot of cheap labor that comes through temporary work programs like H-1B and B-1, and even through the F-1 program, where they're using these foreign students as cheap foreign workers instead of having them graduate and then go back to their home countries, which is what the foreign student visa program was intended to do in the first place. And meanwhile, you've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in bed with the AFL-CIO, which now sells out its own American workers in favor of these massive amnesty plans, and the Gang of Eight. And all along the way, you've got the John McCains of the world and the Jeb Bushes somehow denigrating those of us who support the rule of law and immigration enforcement, because we understand that if you don't preserve the system first and foremost for people who play by the rules, the whole thing is going to deteriorate into anarchy, which is exactly what has happened.
And I think we ought to
chaos that these people want.
I think we ought to start talking about what they really want are modern day indentured servants, and they are perfectly happy having people live in this purgatory, this second class citizenville, where you have no rights and therefore you can be abused and exploited as labor, and that serves their benefits. And then on the other side, you got the leftists who look to game for amnesty ultimately to get the votes so they can stay in power forever.
That's right. Cheap labor and cheap votes. And of course, we're not only talking about illegal alien migrant labor, but also a lot of, like I said, of these tech workers who are essentially just journeymen. I mean, they're always touted by the Microsofts and Facebooks of the world as being the best and the brightest. But when you look at it, the H-1B program is not operating the way they said that it would. And it's basically providing these handcuffed workers, largely from India and China, who are sabotaging the wages of America's best and brightest. And I really was spurred and inspired by Anthony Maglica's example. Here's a man who is a principled American entrepreneur who understands the American dream is supposed to be for American business people and American workers. And then when you start selling out and basically undercutting your own quality, under this false facade of cutting costs, of course, a lot of companies have realized that outsourcing was a big mistake, and now, the new insourcing trend, because, those chickens have come home to roost for them. Isn't the kind of things we want to hear about from a 2016 GOP candidate? Do they fully understand the ramifications of what's gone on?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because the media is more fixated, and the left is fixated now on Deflategate, on FIFA and soccer and corruption there, but they completely ignore the corruption that affects more Americans than anything else, and that is when it comes to where you work and what you take home and what your job prospects are. You work hard, you play by the rules, and the government screws you, basically.
Yeah, that's right. All of these politicians and all of these pundits always pay lip service to Made in America. They're always talking about the need to protect and enhance the American middle class. And then they turn around and stab people who are trying to move up the economic ladder and who believe in social mobility, and they're doing everything that they can to get in the way and obstruct them. And we really need somebody who's a very good messenger and spokesman, but somebody who's going to do more than just pay lip service. I want somebody who has proven their mettle when it comes to reducing the size and scope of government in our lives.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Michelle, and I want to thank you for your work in the trenches in holding these people accountable. You speak the truth. You're extremely articulate, and you hold their feet to the fire at a high level, and you speak for a lot of us. So I want to thank you for that. Look, if you're just tuning in, we've been talking with Michelle Malkin. Her book is Who Built That? You can get it at Amazon. You can find a link at timdonnellyshow.com. Michelle, thank you for coming on with us today.
I appreciate it. Take care, Tim.
Godspeed. Hey, if you if you're just tuning in, this segment has been sponsored by the Goodspeed companies. You know, I always say Godspeed. Well, the next best thing is Goodspeed, and we are grateful for them sponsoring this segment and bringing you a new segment on the Tim Donnelly Show, which is Who Built That? We were inspired by the title of the book and by the passion that Michelle has shown for Michelle Malkin for America and American principles and American entrepreneurs, which she calls tinkerpreneurs. That's a very hard word to say, so stop laughing at me in there. We will take your calls coming up after this next break. I see we've got some people on hold, but you know, 2016 is going to be a lot more interesting than you might think, because I think people are ready to throw down the gauntlet and demand some accountability from their candidates. And Michelle Malkin had it right. She's got some litmus tests. Amnesty is at the top of the list. That's at the top of my list. I don't know what's 323-746-TALK if you want to tell me what's at the top of your list, because we will get to your calls after the break. 323-746-8255. Oh, I still have 30 seconds? TimDonnellyShow.com is how you connect with us. You can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and we live stream the Radio Free California Network. Stay tuned. Your call is coming up after the break. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, we're going to go straight to your calls. If you are just tuning in, we talked to Michelle Malkin last hour, and that woman is an amazing, extremely articulate defender of freedom, and you just can't keep up with her. First, we're going to take Gary in North Dakota. Gary, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me on. I listened to the interview with Michelle, and it was really great. She stole a lot of my thunder, but I don't mind, really. But,
yeah, she has a way of doing that. It's funny. I've always talked. I've always talked about immigration as, as cheap labor for the Republicans and cheap votes for the Democrats, and she said the same thing. So I guess.
That's how it is.
I guess if you're thinking the same thing, then you're in good company.
Oh yeah, but anyway, I was going to talk a little bit about my family, how we immigrated. We immigrated here from Germany in the late 1800s, and didn't have nothing. They didn't have any of these programs, and they started, with nothing, In fact, some of them worked little jobs uptown, they worked at creameries and stuff like that just to have a little bit of money. You didn't get paid real well, but then they were assigned a plot of land. And you could do anything they want with that land, so many of them would break it up, and then they planted crops. And this is how the farming community got started up here. And they planted crops, and of course, over time, they would purchase more land. They were assigned like 1/4, 160 acres. That's how that worked.
Right.
And of course, over time, and the price was pretty good at the time because it was scarce. The wheat was scarce and stuff like that, and it fed people. And when they were allowed to keep their grain, they didn't have to share it. Socialism would force them to share it, which would take away the incentive. Why even work if you have to give it away? And what's happened over the years, it just happens so incrementally. I mean, so slowly. Like when you have a bad year in farm, they offered payments, to help you out. The government did, and of course, once they start, they never end. And when you start getting payments, of course, then they start robbing you of your freedoms, very slowly at first, but it incrementally speeds up over time.
Yeah, and
we're at right now.
They've gotten really.
Michelle was talking about pardon me?
They've gotten really good at it.
They did it. That's the thing. And of course, the education system has become a failure. The public education system, of course. But what Michelle was talking about toward the end, we were talking about the middle class. Democrats classify people in all these different classes. They do it as race. And I always kept saying, I've talked to my friends, I said, why can't we just call everybody Americans? And I don't really care how much they earn or how little they earn. We're all Americans. You work harder, you're probably going to earn more. If you come up with innovative ideas, you're probably going to be successful. Especially people want these ideas. It makes your life simpler.
Yeah, it used to be, Gary, that everybody wanted the American dream and they were willing to work really hard for it. Doesn't mean everybody's going to get it. It's a guarantee of the pursuit of happiness, not guaranteed happiness.
That's exactly right.
Well,
no,
Gary...
Yeah, you're exactly right. You have a right to pursue it. If a person doesn't want to work, they don't have to either.
That's right.
But then they're not going to be successful. Now they're encouraged not to work. Basically, you got these freebies.
Well, it pays not to work. It pays not to work. Gary, thank you for calling in today. I've got to take a couple more calls, but always glad to hear from you.
You bet.
We're going to pick up Dominica in Tustin. Hey, Dominica, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for having Michelle Malkin on because she, amongst other things, has been just such a warrior on the Common Core issue and bringing that to attention nationwide. And, in California here, we have so many parents and grandparents and teachers who are just up in arms about Common Core. So,
absolutely.
I wanted to thank you for that.
No, my pleasure. She was a delight to have on. She is so smart and so articulate, and she never backs down. She lays out what she believes in, and then she defends it to the nth degree. And we need a whole lot more people like her, especially at the national level. And, I don't know if you know this, but she used to live in Southern California. And she left California because she saw all of these encroachments, and she saw how aggressive California is at depriving Californians of their fundamental natural rights.
Right. Yes. Well, she gets it, and we know you do too, and we just thank you.
Well, thank you for calling in. Godspeed.
Okay. You too,
Tim. We got Gabe in Burbank. Wants to know if California is going to do anything about the water being released by the Delta Smelt, or for the Delta Smelt instead of the people. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. Do you think anything legally is going to be done to change that?
I think there's going to be a showdown at some point in this state on water. I don't know whether it's going to be the people versus the federal government, because the EPA is who's driving that with the Endangered Species Act. But you've also got Brown, who's on board with that. He's getting ready to tear down dams, and he has not stood up for the people of California against the federal government and said, hey, we're not releasing any more water for a damn fish.
Well, that's sure right that he hasn't stood up for the people.
Yeah, and do I think something's going to happen? Something's going to happen. I can't predict what, but I can tell you how the farmers in the Central Valley feel. I can tell you how the people in the foothills feel. I can tell you how a whole lot, even, let's take you and I. We live in Southern California. And, well, I'm assuming that from your zip code.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're from Burbank.
Yes.
Now, do you get the show out there on air or online?
Online. On
Okay.
my PC.
But you're not very PC, are you?
No.
Well, we love that. But you know, I think we're going to see something's going to give, because people are tired of being blamed for the government's failure. Why is Jerry Brown going to fine you $500 if you water your lawn, and then you could have your homeowners association fine you, or your city fine you $500 if you don't water your lawn, and then you can have fines up to $10,000, and the goal is to get you to comply, to get you to do some artificial 25% reduction in your water use, which might not even be possible if you want to remain a clean and healthy human being. You might have already cut way back. And instead of letting market forces work, instead of being honest with the people in California and saying, hey, look, we live in a desert. We all got to work together. And I'm not going to build that stupid train that nobody wants with money that I had to borrow from your grandchildren and stealing people's land to do it. I'm going to put and make my legacy ensuring that Californians have enough water to live and work and breathe and survive and thrive in the greatest state in the union. So we're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to stop letting out water for fish. That's just stupid. We can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to fight the federal government. That's number one. Number two, hey, I'm going to start a program and say, you know, hey, anybody who can develop a cheaper, faster, greener, cleaner, meaner, more efficient way to desalt the ocean, we'll fund you and we'll get this going and turn it into a California-based business. And let's get businesses to come in here, and you could win a prize. Yeah, we'll put up $1 million from the government, or 10 million, or whatever it is. But then you've got all these smart, capable people working on a problem, and instead what they're saying is we want to control the people. Because you control the water, you control the people.
You want here?
No, I'm good. I'm waiting.
Oh.
You still there, Gabe?
Yes, I'm still here. Okay, well, you answered my question. So
well, thank you. Thank you for calling in, Gabe.
Okay, bye.
Get it out on the air. Are you there?
Yeah, I got you on the air. How you doing? Welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, what's up, Timmy?
Hey, who's this?
This is Tim. I'm in Barstow.
Oh, hey, Tim. How are you?
Good. Hey, I was just talking to him, and I was talking about the geostratosphere engineering program that the government's using to deliberately create a high-pressure cell pushing all the moisture out of California.
Well, do you think Jerry Brown's behind that?
Well, I think Jerry Brown is allowing it to happen. I don't think he's behind it.
Well, I mean, he certainly has not been serious about dealing with the water infrastructure in a state. We're stuck with an infrastructure for a state of 20 million, and we have almost 40 million people. And Jerry is inviting more and more and more people to come into this country illegally, which is going to put even more strain on our natural resources, like water in particular. So it doesn't make any sense. But look, we got to take a break. Tim, give us a call another time, and we will be right back after this break. 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255 if you have something to say. And by the way, coming up after 5 o'clock, we're going to talk about that secret trade deal. If you're just tuning in, you are a little bit late to the party, but you know what? We've had a great show today, and we're going to continue having a great show. We've got a lady coming up who is a representative for a manufacturer, and she's deeply concerned about the impacts of the secret trade deal. It's been almost impossible to get anyone to talk about what's in this bill because no one seems to know what's in this bill. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, this crazy package of bills that are, I don't know what to say about it, except that I'm really concerned when the government, when you have Republicans conspiring with Obama to pass something that we don't get to see what's in it. There's a reason the public wants to see what's in the legislation, what's in the trade packages, because we want to know how it's going to affect us. So we're going to talk about that coming up after the 5 o'clock hour. But, you know, it's interesting going back to a couple of the calls that we took. The government has become the greatest threat to your economic future. I mean, if you own a business, if you want to create something, you want to invent something, you're probably not going to do it in California. You're probably going to do it in another state. I mean, we talked to Megan Barth, who was on here a couple weeks ago, who wrote a classic piece about California being in the rearview mirror, about leaving California. We talked to Michelle Malkin. I talked to her on the break, and she used to live in Southern California. And she left. She saw the writing on the wall. We've had so many people who have moved out of the state of California. I'm surprised. I don't know about you, but I'm surprised that Maglight's still here. I actually looked that up before the interview with Michelle Malkin. I wanted to make sure that the iconic flashlight maker was still in California. Can you believe it?
I'm surprised he's still here.
Yeah, I mean, with all the abuse that he's had to put up with here in the state of California, they keep running this bill. This year, my friend and former roommate Brian Jones is running it again, AB 312, to try to get his product declared made in America. It is just beyond belief the hassles and the obstacles that the government creates to what it says it wants, which is they claim they want economic growth. They claim they want to be able to tax your earnings, but they make it impossible for you to earn anything.
Maybe he should follow our friend and go to where was she going? Nevada?
She's moving to Nevada. And I think the number one states that people move to, the target destinations instead of California, are Texas, Arizona, Nevada, because they're close in proximity. You're still in the Southwest. You have similar weather. Texas has certainly been the most aggressive recruiter. But I'm hearing commercials now from states like New York. I'm hearing commercials from states like, I think Indiana was running one. I've heard Michigan. Can you imagine a state like Michigan running ads that are trying to steal businesses away from California? I mean, Michigan was a disaster. It was a war zone. It was a failed state, essentially. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think. I can't imagine leaving California. We have the best of everything. Hey, we're gonna switch gears here a little bit. Do you have any of that clip of Ann Coulter? I caught this on. I think it was on my Facebook feed. Ann Coulter, talk about strong women. Oh, we don't have time? Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with you. You stick around. We're going to talk about the secret trade deal coming up after the break. We will bring you this Ann Coulter clip where she completely schools up this this, what she calls a cultural imperialist, Jorge Ramos. And, you know, he does what the left always does, is he creates his own facts. Then he begins to argue on the basis of his own facts. We saw this recently in California with the gun control bills, the gun control agenda, where you have the Santa Barbara tragedy being used to justify massive increases in power, huge additions to the control of the central government to be able to come in and seize your firearms, even if you bought them legally, even if you never have done anything wrong in your life. If they think you might eventually commit a crime, they've now got the power, as long as they can back it up with somebody who lived with you for 6 months, who claims they're your family, who gives them some justification, some legal justification to hang their hat. And they take your guns first, declare you guilty, and then you have to prove yourself innocent. That's what California has become. And you can't blame people for leaving. I mean, it's sort of the logical conclusion, but there's some of us that just refuse to leave, partly because they want us to leave. But I'm not going to leave the state that I've come to love, the state that I moved to intentionally. I didn't grow up here because my parents moved here. I chose to move here after my first year in college. I got tired of the weather in Michigan and decided I wanted to go someplace where the sun was out and I could go to the beach, or I could hit the mountains and go skiing.
It took you that long to move?
Well, I had to get to legal age. I was 19 when I left and came out here in my VW Bug. But
you could have asked Jerry Brown to build you a train. You could have come out sooner.
Well, actually, at the time, he was no longer the governor.
Oh.
I think it was Duke Majan. I came out in 85. I
was not born, by the way.
Oh, my
That's
gosh.
one hint.
You did not just say that. Okay, you know what? You just made everyone who is over the age of 30 feel really, really old. Thank you very much to the Noskinator. And, yeah. We'll just end on that right there. But stay tuned. We've got a great conversation coming up about the secret trade bill. 323-746-TALK if you want to get on it. I'm just enjoying the soothing sounds of whatever that was. What was that anyway?
It's it's by Neon Trees, and the track is actually titled "Sleeping with a Friend."
Oh, well, okay. That's not quite the title I was looking for, but you know what? Once in a while, it's been a crazy day and a crazy week, and it was great. We had Michelle Malkin on earlier, and if you didn't hear that segment, you can always go to timdonnellyshow.com. Go to our podcast. You want to subscribe there, but you also may want to go to our YouTube channel, because we're putting up our previous shows on our YouTube channel. They're getting up a lot quicker that way, and the bottom line is it's just expedient. It's fast. You can listen to it while you're working. You don't actually watch a video, but last year, well, geez, it seems like it was December 2013 when I was running for governor. I went to a meeting in San Diego of a group of manufacturers and actually a whole bunch of different industries, a coalition for a prosperous America. And I met Michelle Nash Hoff, who is very outspoken in defense of American industries, and specifically where it comes to trade deals. And they were actually talking about this deal way back when it wasn't on anybody else's radar screen, really. And to me, what gnaws me relentlessly, both the Republicans and the Democrats, always, especially Obama, we're all about transparency. We want to bring the sunshine in. And then they block the windows and they want to do these deals in the dark. And that right there should make you smell a rat. So we're going to bring on Michelle Nash Hoff of the Coalition for a Prosperous America. Michelle, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
It's a pleasure to be on your show, Tim.
Well, it is a pleasure to talk to you again, and thank you for your informative articles and your continuing fight on this subject. You guys were on this a long time before it was on anybody else's radar screen.
Oh, yes, because it's actually been in negotiation. The Trans-Pacific Partnership has been in negotiation for nearly 5 years, but it's all been in secret behind closed doors without any involvement from Congress.
Well, we've noticed that. We played a clip on our show a couple weeks ago of our one of our congresswomen from the Bay Area, Nancy. No, it wasn't. It was our senator, Barbara Boxer. I get Boxer and Pelosi mixed up, but it was Barbara Boxer, and I've never agreed with her on anything. And she went in there, and she wanted to read the deal, and she had a staffer with her. And look, it's hard to read all these documents at one time, especially if it's a big fat chunk, and you want to take notes, or you want to take pictures, or you want to get clips. I mean, you want to be able to read it, digest it, analyze it. And they said, no, even the notes that you take cannot leave this room. You have to hand them over to the guard, the armed guard at the door. And she said, you guys are nuts.
Well, that's right. It's classified, and they've made it illegal to take any notes and have any. Usually they can't even bring a staff person in with them. And it's over 1,000 pages long. Okay,
so do you guys have any idea what's in it?
Yes, because some of the trading partner countries, there's 11 countries that will be part of the trade agreement, have leaked out the text. And my latest article of this morning actually has a downloadable PDF of one of the chapters of the agreement, which is called the Investor State Dispute Settlement Chapter. And it was leaked by WikiLeaks.
Okay, and can you kind of outline for our listeners the main objections that you have as because you guys are a coalition of American business owners from agriculture, from manufacturing, and other industries that are fighting for basically for the American point of view.
Right. Well, there's two parts of this. There's this Trade Promotion Authority, which was voted on last Friday by the Senate and passed, and that grants the president the authority to negotiate and sign trade agreements without any amendment by Congress. So in other words, they're giving him the right to handle trade agreements and giving up their authority that they were granted under the Constitution. And
that sounds par for the course for the Republicans anyway. Right.
Well, so when it comes back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership after it's signed, it comes back to Congress. They are only allowed 20 hours of debate and no amendments, and it's an up or down majority vote instead of the supermajority that trade agreements are supposed to have under the U.S. Constitution. So that's the first thing we're against, is this Trade Promotion Authority. We need to stop it in the House because that's where we have more authority. The big problem is, senators only get elected every 6 years, and no bad vote is going to affect their next election. But for the House, it's a different story since they're elected every 2 years.
Yeah, we got them on a short string, a short leash.
Exactly. So So as a result of all these trade agreements over the last 20 years, we've lost about 5.8 million manufacturing jobs, and about 57,000 manufacturing firms have closed. And we've accumulated about a $10.1 trillion trade deficit if you add year after year of trade deficit. So we run about a little over $500 million a year. So, no, actually, I mean $500 billion a year we do. So, $500 billion. So anyway, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was with 11 countries all around the Pacific Rim, everybody from Australia to New Zealand, and it represents about 40% of the world's economy, these 11 countries. So it's a really big deal. And some of the things that are wrong with it are that it would, for manufacturing, it would make the Buy American Act virtually null and void, because all the 11 countries have to be given the same preferential treatment, the companies within those countries, to be able to bid on government procurement for the other countries as part of the trade. Of course, we have the most government procurement of any of those 12 countries, so that means our manufacturers, American manufacturers, would be competing against manufacturers of 11 more countries for government procurement for defense and military contracts. And right now, the only way some companies have been able to stay in existence through, the offshoring of so much manufacturing was for that government procurement, that you had to be an American-only company to be able to get, contracts for the Defense Department and military. So that would eliminate that ability, and we would lose more, companies going out of business because they couldn't compete against the offshore competition from like Vietnam, where the wages are so low.
Well, yeah, they have. Let's be clear. Some of these countries have no protections for workers. They have no protections for the environment, and I'm not at all. I am a regulation hawk. I am anti-unnecessary regulation, but we do need some rules, and because we want to live in a civilized society, and we don't want people working for slave wages and in unsafe conditions, and there are always some people who will take advantage of that, but it doesn't make any sense to force companies to compete with countries that basically have no rules whatsoever and let them go get an American contract. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Right. The other big thing that's bad about it is for all Americans, not just business. It would make country of origin labeling and labeling of whether a product is a GMO product or organic almost illegal, because it could be viewed as an illegal trade barrier under the agreement. And that's where this investor states settlement dispute comes into, because companies in other countries would have the ability to sue local, state, and federal agencies that infringe on their potential to make profits.
I mean, that's funny, because that'd be a full-time business. If you could sue for a government infringing on your ability to make profits, it'd be a full-time business. I'd go become a lawyer and sue all these governments, like here in California. I mean, that's nuts.
Yes.
To let foreign governments do that, you're saying?
Yeah.
And foreign companies, I'm sorry.
Yeah, foreign companies in these trading partner countries. It's already been in effect since NAFTA. A Canadian company sued the Cal EPA when California banned MTBE from being in their gasoline.
Wow.
And only because of the state of California got behind the lawsuit did we not lose it.
Oh, my word. Well, it's
like a small water board could lose and it could be a city could lose, and the problem is it doesn't go in the U.S. court system. It goes to international foreign tribunals where there's appointed lawyers that can act as advocates one day and be judges the next.
Oh, that sounds like our family court system. Hey, we're talking, if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Michelle Nash Hoffman, Coalition for a Prosperous America. We are talking about the TPA and the TPP, which is the trade Give me that TPA again.
Yeah, Trade Promotion Authority.
Trade Promotion Authority, and then the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Partnership.
Michelle, we're going to take a break. Can we hold you over?
Sure.
Hey, this is important stuff because our government does not want, our Congress doesn't even want to be involved in helping shape policy that we would have to live under and be subject to. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial. 323-746-TALK if you have something to say about it or a question for Michelle. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, and we are talking trade with Michelle Nash Hoff of the Coalition for a Prosperous America. And who couldn't want that? I can't even explain why there are members of our Congress. I mean, these guys want to be in control of everything. Why wouldn't they want to have control and input into trade deals? And why would they limit the amount of debate? These things should be vigorously fought out on the floor, and they should not be entered into lightly. Michelle, we were starting to talk about the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership with the Pacific Rim countries, of which you were saying there's 40% of the world's economy would essentially be incorporated in this deal, and it would give unbelievable powers to foreign companies to be able to sue American municipalities or state governments or city governments that impede their profitability. And of course, who will have to pay for all that but the American taxpayers? And meanwhile, we've been losing jobs at a record pace, in due in large part to overregulation. And that seems to be where we ought to be focusing, is relinquishing unnecessary and punitive regulations that are really designed just to create jobs for people who are in the bureaucracy class.
Right. But Tim, you see, people, the international corporations, the multinational global corporations, the large multinational corporations, they had over 400 corporate advisors writing this Trans-Pacific Partnership. So it benefits them. They represent about 2% of American manufacturers, and many of them are not even owned by American companies anymore, the members of the U.S. Chamber and National Association of Manufacturers, because they were bought by a foreign, corporation out of another country like, Europe. And so the agreement benefits them to the detriment of about 98% of the American-only companies. And, the Republicans are in favor of it because it sounds good, free trade, which means less government control. But this trade agreement is actually the opposite.
But it's not free trade.
No, it's not
free trade. Free trade is when you say, "Hey, I'm going to do business with you. You're going to do business with me, and we're not going to have any artificial barriers, and it's a two-way street." But all these deals, they always handcuff America and American businesses, especially small businesses, in favor of these massive, as you say, global monolithic corporations that nobody can even understand. You don't even know where they are. I sometimes I think instead of flying the American flag, they're going to start flying that one that NASA wants to create that they want to put on the moon in place of the American flag. I mean, they want to have global citizenship.
Well, that's the purpose behind it. One world government, and is really what it is, because there's only 5 chapters of 29 that are related to trade. The other 24 chapters relate to things like, domestic regulation, food and product safety, intellectual property, patents, copyrights, labor standards, and many other local and state laws. The problem is that the TPP would overrule prior acts of Congress and could destroy our national sovereignty, because it would.
Let me stop you right there, because I've heard, and forgive me, I haven't gotten a hold of this leaked text. I don't think I was on the WikiLeaks email list, but the Dick Morris made a comment, and it was a headline a couple weeks back, that this bill would allow unlimited immigration into the United States, and it's hidden somewhere in that deal. Is there anything like that in there?
Well, I haven't read that particular chapter. I haven't seen that leaked text, but I believe it, because it does cover, immigration. So it's, there's so many, over 1,000 pages. You can imagine the detail that it goes into on all these different issues. And the whole big problem is, our trade agreements, the other countries have found a way to go around them, which is why we don't have free trade, because they've done currency manipulation, they do government subsidies for state-owned enterprises. Instead of a tariff, they've come up with something called a value-added tax, which is a tariff by another name. So everything they've done has made the benefits of a trade agreement practically null and void, because of what they're doing that's called predatory mercantilism. So they've found ways to eliminate the benefits for American companies only to benefit themselves, our trading partners, which is why we have this enormous trade deficit.
Well, and Michelle, we're speaking with Michelle Nash Hoff of the Coalition for a Prosperous America. I have never seen such an interesting coalition of people opposing it. You've got the Tea Party, and you've got Barbara Boxer and Nancy Pelosi against it. You got Barack Obama in favor of it, but you have a lot of like Elizabeth Warren and others who are fighting him, and you have some conservatives, a lot of conservatives that are deeply concerned. I'm hoping you'll be able to come back and update us as time goes on and this fight gets hotter and heavier. But meanwhile, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, savingusmanufacturing.com, but the Coalition for Prosperous America has a website, prosperousamerica.org. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, because right now we're really at a crossroads, whether America is going to remain in control of their destiny or will be forced about of foreign tribunals and have more of our jobs shipped overseas. So it could be brought up for a vote as soon as they get back from their recess in the next couple of weeks. We need people to call their congressmen and urge them to vote no on granting fast-track authority.
We will do that. Thank you for coming on today. Stay tuned.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
You just have to laugh if you were listening to the news with Attorney General Loretta Lynch saying that there is justification for us to investigate and look into these charges of corruption in FIFA because there was bribery and corruption, and much of it occurred at meetings that were held on U.S. soil. And I'm like, is this a trick? Is this sleight of hand? I mean, you guys want to point the finger at a soccer organization. Last week it was Deflategate. The week before that it was the Major League Baseball steroids crisis. And then before that, what was that guy? What's his name? The bicyclist. Help me out here. Oh, you got to look it up? I thought maybe your brain was going to work better because it's younger. His name just escapes me. Anyway, the guy that got banned for using steroids, riding bicycles, he had the wristbands that said "Live Strong."
Oh, Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong. He was dating the actress or the singer or whatever. Anyway, I can't help but believe that this administration wants you to look over here for corruption because they don't want you to look at what they're doing. They don't want you to look at what Hillary Clinton has done. These are massive, major, serious issues that affect real government, that affect your life. We just finished observing Memorial Day, and if you care about those who serve this country and put their lives at risk, it has to infuriate you to see the unnecessary deaths in Benghazi when our government knew there was trouble brewing and could have pulled our people out. They could have taken preventative action, but instead they left them out there as bait. Then they pulled another bait and switch. But every time you turn around, what in the world is she talking about FIFA for when all she has to do is drive a little over an hour or so from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore? I don't even know if it's that far. And take a look at how many Americans were killed on the streets of an American city. But no, she will not look into those violations of civil rights. And what I'm speaking of is a government that refuses to protect the citizens. It was funny. On the way in today, I stopped to get gas, and I was talking to the guy behind the counter. And he asked me what my hat stood for. You know, I wear a black hat that says NRA. It's the best part of my wardrobe, okay?
Oh, you weren't wearing your Titleist hat today?
OMG. Cannot believe you just said that. And I told him National Rifle Association, and he said, oh, really? And he said, how does the Congress feel about the NRA? And I said, well, they're probably pretty supportive. And I said, but in the state of California where we live, our government is trying to impose gun control and take away your natural fundamental right to defend yourself and your life. And he asked why, and I explained to him a little bit behind the reasoning. And he was a foreigner from some other country. He wasn't born here. So he was asking very sincere questions. And at the end, he said, I don't want the government taking my freedom away because I don't believe the government can protect me. He said, my wife just this morning said, we need to get a gun. And she said, honey, if you don't go out and get one, I'm getting one. And I thought, wow, and of course, we made it so hard that he has no idea what he's in for. I did tell him to go to Turner's, by the way, who is a sponsor of this show. And I also told him to join the Firearms Policy Coalition. Hey, and by the way, we're going to have Brandon on tomorrow in the 4 o'clock hour to talk about what's going on with not only your gun rights here in California, but also some court cases that could have major implications across the country. and some of the fights that they're involved in. And who knows? Maybe we can persuade him to give away a free T-shirt that says equality or gun rights equals civil rights, depending on whether you're a male or female. And you'll have to go up on our website and look at the pictures in the photo gallery if you want to see what those T-shirts look like. But anyway, right now, I want to switch gears and talk about this epic battle between Ann Coulter and Jorge Ramos of Univision. He's got a show called Fusion. And without further ado.
The point is, before Teddy Kennedy's 1965 Immigration Act, there was more diversity in immigration. Diversity should mean we take an equal number from, all the countries in the world. I think that would be a stupid policy, but that would at least be diversity. Still talking. That's not what we're doing now. We are taking 30% of all legal immigrants from Mexico, 60% of all illegal immigrants from Mexico, instead of taking 5% or more from 7 different countries, which was the case before 1965. Mostly
European countries that you want.
We're taking them all from Mexico. Well, okay, but...
So your problem is with Mexicans, but not with Europeans?
No, you said what's the matter with diversity. I'm telling you it's not diversity. I'm just getting our facts straight. And no, I didn't want to live in Mexico.
Facts. So
I don't want to live in Ireland. I don't want to live in Scotland. I wanted to live in America. Why don't liberals, why do you think that the Mexicans who fled here want to recreate Mexico here? No, it helps your power because your media desirability goes up a lot. But you're not speaking for the immigrants who came here from Mexico. They left Mexico. They came
and it's an economic situation. It's simply an economic situation. They come here because there are thousands of American companies who hire them, and because there are millions of Americans, including you, who benefit from their work.
It's more than economic because you have something like 2.4 trillion people in the world living on like $2 a year. They'd all like to come here. Mexico happens to be within walking distance. So you're the one who's discriminating against the poor Bangladeshis who would love to come here, but they can't walk across the border. Why should we discriminate against them?
So let me just say this at the end.
It is not diversity. It is just changing our culture without checking with the American people into Mexico.
Let me just finish with this. So you think there are way too many immigrants in this country?
It's not only that there are way too many, we're getting immigrants who are immediately going on welfare, who are committing crime. No immigrants should be committing crime.
The majority of immigrants are not terrorists or criminals.
Should be zero. Why would you invite? Look, we can't do anything about our own underclass. We can't do anything about native criminals. We can do something about people we're inviting into our country.
So let me just give you this number. So you're concerned about immigrants coming here. The number of foreign-born population, the percentage foreign-born population, 1900s it was 13.6%. In 1910, 14.7%. Right now, 13%. In other words, the percentage of the foreign-born population in this country hasn't changed. So you're crying wolf.
No,
there's no problem.
You didn't listen to my last answer. It isn't just the fact of immigration. It's the immigrants we're getting. It is also a fact that the immigrants before 1970 were more likely to graduate.
So you're concerned about Latino immigrants.
I can't believe how often he tries to interrupt her.
From college, we're more likely to make more money. We're less likely to be on welfare. We're more likely to own their own homes. Post 1970, upside down.
That is not true. Second generation Latinos.
Not true.
Tend to get better jobs, better salaries,
not than the native population.
Better salaries. They go to college. You have 4 million Latinos who have bachelor's degrees. This is 1.4 million Latinos who have PhDs or master's degrees.
Better than what? Better than their parents, not better than the native population.
Better than their parents. That's second generation Latinos.
Their parents
who cares,
we're utter peasants. Doing better than their parents isn't better than the native population.
Second generation Latinos are doing much better. Are doing much better than the parents, of course.
No, we're not in an international humanitarian process here. American government should be protecting the American people, not helping out the people of the world. This isn't an international charity mission.
Well, that's the tradition in this country, and this is a country that was formed by immigrants, including your family and my family. We all came from another country.
I didn't come from another country.
Well, your family did.
No, it it didn't.
Of course it did.
No, it didn't.
Of course it did.
There was no, it did not. My family came from America because there was no America until they came.
Okay, before your parents,
There
they
is a
came from
difference
somewhere.
if they taught American history,
That's
which
the one thing.
apparently they don't. The first people here back in the 1600s were not immigrants. They were settlers. They came to a society or a continent
They came
that
from another
had
country.
no country. They created this country. The Dutch, mostly the British, created America.
So they came from-
were not immigrants.
So
Nor were the first, 17 presidents.
your family
weren't
came from
immigrants.
another
They were
country,
settlers.
so did mine.
No, they
So-
weren't. My relatives are
all right,
American.
let's take a break.
You are a cultural imperialist.
You're a cultural imperialist. I mean, look, there's so much I could say about this, but we're going to go to a break. We're going to take your calls when we get back. 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. Stay tuned. Final segment of the Tim Donnelly Show coming right up. Hey, if you find yourself in my hometown of Twin Peaks, don't leave without stopping by the grill at the Antlers Inn. It's right in the heart of Twin Peaks. They serve dinner every night. They're right there at Highway 189 and Bear Springs Road. They have the best steaks, the best sushi. No matter what you have, make sure you call ahead for a reservation. 909-336-2600. 909-336-2600. And tell them Tim Donnelly sent you. Hey, we are in the home stretch on a Leftist Gone Wild Wednesday. And if you missed the segment that we just played, all I can say is you need to go either on our previous shows or go online and Google Ann Coulter, Jorge Ramos. See, what she did there is she took him to school every time he tried to make up a fact. He kept trying to invent things. He told her that her people came from another country. This is the way the left argues, especially on immigration. They go right to race. He kept trying to bait her, but she's way too smart to fall into it. And she just destroyed him. I mean, she buried him. It really wasn't fair. It was like she had one hand tied behind her back, and he didn't have a chance. I could just listen to that all day. I'm sorry, but I'm sick and tired of the left getting away with whatever they want. They make up whatever they want, and then that becomes the truth. And you didn't even play the segment where he goes into the number. By the way, it's okay because I've been arguing that there are 30 to 40 million people in this country illegally. The left does not want you to know that. The government doesn't want you to know that. So they keep telling us it's 11 million. They've decided, it used to be 11 to 20 million. Now they've just decided on this magic number of 11. 11 million people are in the country illegally. Oh, yeah, and that's been the same number for over a decade. Whatever number they give you on immigration, you just need to triple it, and then you might be close to being accurate. Hey, we're going to take a call from Debbie in Phelan. Hey, Debbie, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hi, Tim. It's Betty.
Oh, Betty.
I met you at the Coffee Bull a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but with Carly Fioroni was there too.
Oh, wonderful.
Did I say that one? But I just wanted to say hi again. But I know you were talking earlier about the water problem that we have in California. But why can't they take the money that they've devoted for the trains and pipe it from Houston? From Houston, Texas.
Oh, wait a minute. Instead of building a high-speed rail to Texas to help take California businesses out of our state, take tax revenues and productive taxpayers and citizens out of our state, and bring back illegal aliens. You want to bring water?
Well, bring water, and look how many people it would put to work. Building a pipeline from Texas.
Well, there's a proposal to bring a pipeline down from Alaska. They've got tons of water up there that they don't really need.
Well, I know Texas doesn't need it now.
Well, certainly ideas like this will be bandied about. I don't know if the one from Texas makes as much sense as from Alaska, but what I would say is we're going to have to do something dramatic to address the crisis that the government has created. It took a natural drought and turned it into an unnatural disaster. And that's on.
I think that's far-fetched as far as from Texas, but Alaska, that sounds like that might be something that could be done.
Yeah, and you know what is interesting? I was joking about the railroad, but from here to Las Vegas, Union Pacific actually built a fuel pipeline right underneath their rail tracks. Now, that makes total sense because if you first of all, you got all the right-of-ways. You're going to be building there anyway. So they went ahead and solved two of their problems so they can transport fuel into Fontana, where one of the biggest rail hubs in the world. And it just makes sense. So if you could do it with fuel from here to Las Vegas, why couldn't you build or align it with the right-of-ways that already exist, either with the freeway or with a railway, where you've already done all that grading and you've already cut a pathway through it. Look, those are the kinds of challenges that California ought to be dealing with, rather than...
Well, this Phelan area, we have the aqueduct that runs right through the city, practically. And, you see something like that, and it's amazing what we could do if we just put the money where we should.
Well, it's not only the money, Betty. It's not just the money. It's the willpower. It's actually aligning your government behind what's best for the citizens. With proper willpower, we could secure the border overnight if we had a president and if we had somebody in charge of the Department of Homeland Security that actually was serious about it. But instead, we have politicians who pander. Anyway,
we definitely have to fight people in there. And I wanted to tell you that when I mentioned the Cocky Bull, they tore that down and put a Walmart in, and it was nice to meet you there, by the way.
Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for calling, Betty. It was nice meeting you, and we are just about out of time here, so I'm going to have to let you go.
Okay, honey. Bye-bye.
Godspeed. Hey, I don't do this show by myself, and I want to say thank you to my wife who lets me do it, to... What's your name again? Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator. My extraordinary producer who takes a lot of abuse, Cassie Cassidy, our intrepid guest booker, John and Sean, who keep things humming, and you, the listener, because without you, there's no show. And I am blessed to be able to speak my mind and raise your voice in the greatest country on the face of the earth. We will be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock, same time, same station. And if you missed it, go to timdonnellyshow.com, hit previous shows, subscribe to the podcast. Let us hear from you. God bless and Godspeed.